Hey guys, Greg Wartko with Green Industry Pros here at GIE+EXPO 2015 with Kris Kiser, president of the OPEI, one of the driving forces behind the show.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, and last year, record-setting attendance. We've blown it out of the water. This year, it sounds like, huh, Kris?
Absolutely. It's a record year again, beating last year's numbers. We have fantastic weather this year, unbelievable.
Yeah.
But our registrations were beyond last year even before we got the weather. So the show is on a terrific trend line.
Mm-hmm.
We believe it or not, we expect it to be bigger next year.
Yeah, and it sounds like attendance-wise, everybody's up. Dealers, landscapers, hardscapers, everybody. So it's the whole industry getting on board.
Every category we track at the show is up. And so, again, as you said, exhibitors, attendees, dealers, we have more people here. It's the right thing by the show. We've got the right products, the right vendors, the right suppliers, the right users, all in the same place, and it's really coming together.
Yeah, and it's a good time for the industry to be coming together in force because, and you and I were talking about something you mentioned this morning in your press conference, it seems like this industry is a little bit under siege. Talk a little bit about some of the things with the California drought,
Sure.
some legislative things happening on the East Coast that are really putting some pressure on the landscaping industry.
Greg, you've hit it on the head. The managed landscape, if you will, is legitimately under attack, and for a host of reasons, largely for water and the perceived need of the managed landscape for water, and it's simply not the case. We saw it early on years ago with Watersheds, which has not gone away, which was an EPA effort to limit the amount of turf grass.
Right.
That effort, which was a government effort, regrettably was a one-size-fits-all, border to border, coast to coast. And so it was, again, it was a regulated effort, government effort, so that the folks in Death Valley or a desert had the exact same limitations that you had in Seattle.
Right.
Bad idea. But
Right.
what we've seen now with the drought in California, it has exacerbated that. Again, driven by water. And so you've got folks with limited knowledge wanting to do the right thing, wanting to save water, saying, oh, the managed landscape is a water guzzler. And you're getting some unflattering terms, new terms in our lexicon. Grass hole, drought shaming. These are things that are not correct. Now, there are behaviors that we need to improve. A lot of folks overwater their lawn. The key is, and if you look at some of our turf mutt messaging that we have in the school with our turf mutt program, it's right plant, right place. The key to Southern California, get the right grass. And by golly, they need it. I'm struck dumb that plastic grass somehow is an environmental solution.
Right.
There's no biodiversity, there's no creation of oxygen, there's no carbon dioxide absorption. It doesn't absorb and filter rainwater, it does none of that, which your grass does.
Right.
But because it doesn't use water, but except in Southern California where it gets hot, you gotta spray it with water to keep it cool.
Right.
It gets dirty. If you have dogs, it gets really dirty. And so you have to use water to do it. So we got to get smarter about it. And what we're doing in California and through our Turf Mutt program is trying to educate folks to do the right thing, find the right grass, get smart about water use, right plants, right place, to do right by the environment. But no, you've hit it on the head. This industry has a terrific challenge ahead of us.
Yeah, and I think what I find intriguing about your messaging is, you take some other issues at hand right now. You got the proponents and the opponents with very little in between, and they just constantly are butting heads. But you're not saying, like you said, right plant in the right place.
Absolutely.
There's a balance to making it work sensibly.
Absolutely, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. And we acknowledge California has a huge problem on their hands, and we want to recognize the drought situation for what it is. But you're actually doing some of the wrong things. What California needs when it does rain, and the rains will come, is California is an ocean of asphalt and concrete and roof. And so it's sheeting all the runoff, right? California's set up to push that water into the curb gutters, into their concrete rivers, and into the ocean. What they need is to capture as much of it as they can on the land, hold it, let it filter. And now we're seeing there's a lot of complaints about the trees dying.
Right, yeah.
And they need their trees, just like they need their green spaces. And so how do we keep our trees alive? Well, you water the lawn, or you keep the lawn alive.
Right.
Some folks water way too much. Make the grass work harder, let the roots grow vertically and not horizontally. All of these things are not hard, they're just lessons to be learned.
Yeah, and you're working, it sounds like, very closely with, for instance, the National Association of Landscape
Absolutely.
Professionals to help get that message out there.
We're working with our partners at NALP, TPI, Irrigation, and others so that we as an industry can come together and look at this thing holistically. In the short, and that's a big project over a long period of time, but the problem in California is moving fast and it's moving now. Luckily, our industry, we're lucky enough to have assets and resources that we can begin to address it right now. And because our Turf Mud program is in schools today with the nation's largest education provider, we could tool some of that to deal with the drought issues. And it's been so successful, in fact, that a television program is using our program to talk about messaging in their television. And that's going to be next year. And we're filming it right now. So we're helping Californians deal with their problems right now.
And that's great. You're right. It's a long-term problem that's going to require an industry-wide effort, but you've made some good progress early, and we look forward to seeing as we head into next year, keeping that momentum going.
Well, we're glad you're here. We hope to see you again next year.
Thanks, Kris.
You bet.